So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk to a special guest. I think you can see him on the screen there. His name is Dele Atanda. Dele, are you there?
I sure am. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Dele. It's great to see you. It's wonderful to hear your voice. And folks, the reason we've invited Dele is because, we've done a bunch of shows on the Surveillance Society, and it's very interesting, of course, with Mr. Snowden. Of course, today in the news, President Obama declined to go visit Mr. Putin in Moscow, although he's going to go to, I think, St. Petersburg for the G20 summit, which I don't know if we're going to be bugging this time or not. Probably not. But maybe we will be bugging it. Who knows? And, of course, that topic's been very much on all our minds. We've all had a lot of comment on it, and a lot of callers have called in about the Surveillance Society, particularly here in New York City, and how that all relates to stop and frisk and profiling people and looking for needles in haystacks of data. And I got an email the other day from Dele, and it was about signing up to participate in something. And I wanted to ask Dele about it, actually, and it was something called the Universal Declaration of Digital Rights. So, Dele, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
So hi, I'm Dele Atanda. I've worked as a digital practitioner with various companies over the years, but now effectively I work as an author, a social entrepreneur, and a digital activist. I'm particularly focused in the area of personal identity data management. For a while now, we've had in developing applications around that, we've understood that there are very serious problems around personal identity data management. And when you look at these things at a fundamental level, you really get to very quickly addressing some fundamental human rights issues with them. So a while ago, we came up with the idea of establishing a Universal Declaration of Digital Rights to give some clarity around the rights of nations in handling of citizens' data. And with recent events with Snowden and the like, it's really sort of brought home the importance of this now.
So, Dele, are there particular countries that are more advanced than others in this area? I know from experience that Germany always stood out, because I have a little background in data as well, that Germany was always very, and China too, maybe for different reasons, but purported to protect people's data. But on the other hand, I think they were sharing data with the NSA, etc. So could you talk a little bit about that, that kind of dichotomy?
Yeah, I think that's it's a brilliant point that you make, actually, and the reference, the joke that you make about bugging the G20 summit is actually particularly pertinent, because yes, I think generally speaking, the European Union has probably got the most advanced data protection laws for citizens, for protecting citizens in the world. And of all the European nations, Germany is the most steadfast and serious and focused, and has the most advanced and sophisticated data protection, citizen data protection legislation. But the challenge, I think you can look at it on a domestic level, and there are various different approaches and interpretations. I think one of the particular interesting things about the Snowden case and the issue with PRISM particularly is that there's a real outrage in America that this is being done to US citizens. So it's being done domestically to the people at home. And that's a genuine concern and outrage, but it doesn't address the core issue about how this happens internationally. Now, of course, everyone is concerned, and we all, for very real reasons, need to protect the state and citizens from terrorism and organized crime. But the problem is that while PRISM may be designed, and even with the questionable legal due process that surrounds PRISM that Obama was trying to defend yesterday, even with that in place, the problem is that the US can work with GCHQ, who the UK intelligence agency, and GCHQ can effectively then spy on US citizens who are not UK citizens and share that information with the US, as the US can do with UK citizens, use PRISM to spy on UK citizens and share that information with the UK. So this is the complex, nebulous framework and network that's happening in this information sharing scenario. So while even nations may say that they're not surveying their citizens and not using these technologies to illegally monitor the activities of their citizens. They are doing it for other foreign nations and then getting that information from those other foreign nations. So it's a bit disingenuous, it's a bit misleading really to suggest that because it's not happening because the technology is not necessarily being directed at US citizens, even though that's not actually true. But even if it were true, the reality is that governments are still collecting this information from other governments. So you know, what we really see here is that we need an international framework that really establishes rights of citizens at a fundamental level, so that we can really legislate how governments can work not only with their own citizens but internationally in terms of surveying citizens of the world.
Okay, and so that's presumably what you're trying to do with the Universal Declaration of Digital Rights. Tell us, what is that? Is that a document already, or is that a process? Or talk to us about that.
So fundamentally, it is a process. The net result of it is to produce a document. The idea is to produce a document that augments the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was established 62 years ago or so now. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has made it very clear for everyone in the world to understand what are fundamental human rights, and therefore we can understand when nations are violating them. Not all countries have signed up to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but it's effectively a global standard, a global set of principles, 30 articles that define what everybody's inalienable human rights are. Now, the challenge is that if you look at universal human rights, they effectively become de facto global citizenship rights. But in a digital age, you can effectively say that many of these rights, such as the right to privacy, the right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, these have material, tangible meanings in a digital age. In a world where everything is connected through the internet, these are tangible. Now, unfortunately, because the universal human rights were written 60 years ago, they don't take into consideration all of the nuances of an interconnected digital world. So the intention of the Universal Declaration of Digital Rights is that we augment the Declaration of Human Rights with a set of rules that clearly outlines what governments can do on a national and international basis around the use of citizens' data.
Okay, so, for example, and Lorraine, jump in if you want to. We've got like 4 more minutes here. As an example, though, even though we have some of these rules in place in the United States, the politicians and some of our unelected officials break them anyway. So, is the goal just to kind of spread this knowledge around the world to give us a framework within which to, I guess, judicialize or try to gain our rights back from people who take them away from us, or to put some sort of teeth behind it to put some of these people in jail, for example?
Absolutely. I mean, the basis of human rights, and you look at the Hague Court and all of these institutions which basically defend human rights, even in extreme circumstances such as war. The Geneva Convention is another similar article that clearly outlines what countries can do even when they're at war. So the basis of the intention is, from the declaration, we can then establish international law that we can use to prosecute people. But also, most importantly, we can use it as a basis to develop technological solutions that enable us as citizens to regain control of our identity and our information, and protect us from the state in that regard.
So if someone wants to participate in this process, I've got your URL up on the screen. It's UDDR. Presumably it stands for Universal Declaration of Digital Rights. If they go to that site, they can participate somehow?
Yes, absolutely. So if they can, we're actually crowdfunding a platform to actually bring all the best minds together to write this declaration and then to start a petition. Our intention is to create the largest petition ever done with 10 million signatures, and then to petition the United Nations via national entities to recognize this Declaration of Digital Rights and to put it into law, effectively. It's international law. So people can support that campaign by either donating towards that crowdfund or sign our petition as well. We have a petition that started now at change.org. can search Universal Declaration of Digital Rights, and people can sign our petition as a way of supporting this cause, or they can donate towards us developing this platform. And then we're going to develop a super smart petitioning tool where we'll be able to petition Washington, 10 Downing Street, as well as the United Nations, and really leverage each signature we get towards getting maximum exposure and maximum political impact.
Okay, but people can get to this petition through this UDDR.org site?
Yes, there is a link on UDDR.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Lorraine, do you have any comments or questions?
Well, I just wanted to ask the guest why he thinks that this petition would work, especially due to the fact that more than half of the world population does not even have data. They don't have computers or telephones, and many of them do not even have food and water. That's my question.
Very interesting. I mean, there's a huge discussion in itself. The short answer to it is that telecoms, I mean, the next wave of the internet is very much mobile, and in all parts of the world, mobile is, I mean, the most advanced mobile market in the world right now is Kenya, which is still a is an aftermarket is a market for used phones primarily, but it's immense in terms of what's happening there in terms of digital communication. So all of the world is going to be connected to the internet very shortly through mobile devices. And also, even though people are poor, this research is showing that in places like Africa, people are spending more money on digital communications and connections than they are on food and housing in some senses, because it is a uniquely human quality to socialize. We are social creatures. So it is really at the fundamental essence of our beings to be connected and to integrate and to communicate and to leave a digital footprint effectively. So that trend will continue tremendously as we see the internet develop.
Okay, well, Dele, I think what we're going to do is just recommend that people go to your site, okay, www.uddr.org. Everybody, if you want to get involved in this issue, you know, we've talked so much about the Surveillance Society. Even today in our studio here, where I've got cameras pointing at me, they've installed a new digital surveillance camera up in the corner, I guess, to watch me watch you. I mean, I really don't know. We're going to give it some tests maybe in a couple weeks and find out who's watching it. But, you know, it's everywhere, and we do need some rights to kind of protect us, at least to be able to articulate them within a context with which to prosecute some of these individuals who ostensibly violate these rights right now under the shadows, and we really don't have anything to hold on to. We sort of just let it go because, hey, they're doing it to protect us. So, Dele, I want to thank you very much for participating with us, for being our guest today, and best of luck with your petition and the rights campaign. And we'll look forward to checking in with you maybe in a couple months or 6 months and see how you're doing, all right?
That'll be great. Thank you very much for having me on the show, Tony.
Yeah, no problem, Dele. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.